welcome to the NSC. My name is Stefan Jóhannesson. I'm the General Manager of Thekking, and Thekking is part organizer as well as being a gold sponsor on this event. We will talk a lot about IT security here today, and you all know that the importance of IT security is growing steadily, and we also know that online crime is becoming more and more organized and professional. It's not just kid hackers anymore. The attacks are getting more and more powerful and serious, and this we know here in Iceland as well. Now, and this is making our lives more difficult. Today we will discuss and learn how to meet these threats. We are extremely proud with the lineup of speakers that we present here today. Most of them have come a long way to be here with us, for which I am very, very thankful. I hope this will be a fun, interesting and instructive conference, and I urge you all to take an active part in it. Use the opportunity to ask questions, discuss and share your ideas with some of the world's most respected experts in the field of IT security. I wish you all a great conference. Thank you. I will now hand over to Mr. Ýmir Vigfússon. He is going to be the session chair here today in this conference hall. Ýmir is, he holds a PhD degree in computer science, and he is an assistant professor at Reykjavik University. Ýmir.
So yeah, welcome everyone. I'll be your session chair. I just wanted to point out that behind your seats there are power plugs in case you want to hook up your laptops and finish your slides. Without further ado, I want to introduce our first keynote speaker for today. His name is David Jacoby. He worked at Outpost 24, followed by TrueSec, and is now at Kaspersky Labs as a senior researcher. Please give it up for David Jacoby.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Wake up. It's funny to see that the chairs here in the front, where you should have all the speakers, is empty. More or less 2 people. Good job. I don't know, maybe a hard party yesterday here in Iceland. Is it possible to get my presentation up? So, what I'm going to talk about is actually not technical, which has been a challenge for me. So I'm invited to this technical conference, and I was asked to do a non-technical talk, which is kind of difficult. But I'll try. So what I did is I wrote a diary of a lot of conversations that I had with IT technicians, CSOs, CTSOs, and security researchers from all my travel. But I'll get into that later. So I'm David Jacoby. I have about 13, 14 years of experience doing exploit development, vulnerability research, penetration testing, and so on. And for the last 2 years, I've been working at Kaspersky Lab, and I'm responsible for all security research in the Nordic and Benelux region. I have a story to tell you. It starts out a few years ago when my good friend Árni was visiting Stockholm. And he told me that he would outdrink a Swede. He didn't. He crawled back home and had a crazy hangover the next day. Then we tried one more time in Vegas a few weeks ago. And he still didn't win. So right now the score is 2-0 to Sweden. But I give him the chance today, right here, right now, to make it up. So we have my friend here, Utti. We have some drinks for you, Árni. And the rules of the game is also that, what's the word for one more time in Icelandic? Aftur. Every time someone's doing a presentation, and the presentation is done, and you scream, aftur, then he has to drink. That's the rules of the game for today. So Artni, please come. Well, he will notice what the drink is. So in Vegas, we actually bought a special drink for him, but he refused to drink it. So now we'll try one more time with this special drink, which is Japanese sake. Cheers. Give him a round of applause. So now it's 2-1 to Iceland. Okay? Let's see. This guy. Anyone know who this guy is? Kevin? Kevin Paulson. What did Kevin Paulson do? Yeah, he hacked into ARPANET. This is in 1983. It's a long time ago. Then we have another famous guy, Kevin Mitnick. What did Kevin do? Does anyone know? He went to jail for something. Yeah, he stole source code. You know, Nokia, Fujitsu, Motorola, Sun Microsystems. Everyone heard about this. These guys, 1993, Masters of Deception. No one? They hacked into the NSA, AT&T and Bank of America. Pretty big stuff. 1997, Haggis. Hacked into NASA. 97 again. Power Through Resistance hacked the CIA website. Maybe you see where I'm going with this. 2000, Mafia Boy? What did Mafia Boy do? Anyone? Say again? No? DDoS. eBay, Amazon, Yahoo, and other companies got DDoSed. What about these guys? No, no one heard about these guys. They hacked into a lot of stuff. So the question is, we've now seen attacks that goes about 20 years back. Can we try to draw some kind of conclusions between the attacks that we see now from these guys and the attacks in the past? Look at the bird. They basically used the same techniques. It hasn't changed that much in 20 years, really. You know? We were still vulnerable to input validation vulnerabilities. We still haven't figured out how to actually configure our systems properly. We still store passwords in clear text in databases, just as we did 20 years ago. Same thing, different attackers. So the question I asked myself, what have we actually learned in 20 years? And I tried to figure out what we actually did. So I started looking into the recent hacks and what actually happened. So LinkedIn got compromised. Yahoo got compromised. You know, it just continues. People steal passwords. We see it all over again, you know? It's just history repeating itself over and over and over again. Is this popular in Iceland or on Iceland? The fake Microsoft scammers that call you and say, hey, I'm from Microsoft. You have a virus on your computer, but we will help you. We will help you fix it. And then you will get charged for some service fee and some fake product that they install on your computer. Has that reached Iceland yet? It's a big problem in Europe, and at least in Sweden. The thing with this is that they don't use any malicious software. Nothing is malicious. They only use social engineering attacks. And how do you actually protect you against that? You cannot update an antivirus to be able to detect these guys. You cannot actually do anything technical to detect these guys. Because they're not doing anything malicious that can be detected. But you can talk about it. We can raise awareness. That's something that we can do. Some statistics. Of course, it goes down in 2012 because the year is not done yet. But this is defaced website from the archive on Zone H. Something happened in 2009, huh? Just boom, increases. And then we can see in 2011, it still increases. Then in 2012, something happened. But how come that all the attacks are increasing, companies are getting compromised, but we are spending millions of Icelandic money on trying to fix this? But it seems that we're always failing. We're always one step behind. I don't know why. So what I did is I wrote my diary. This is my diary. Traveled the world. I went on a 1 year, let's say call it a road trip, around the world, speaking at conferences like the IDC Security Roadshow, where I could meet security officers, information managers, and so on. I actually talked to them and asked them what's actually going on. So I had 4 questions. I'll come to the questions. I had 4 questions. The questions was pretty simple. What is IT security? What's the worst case scenario? How do you work with education? Things that they should know. So this is me traveling the world, huh? This is not Photoshop. This is actually me. I wanted a real good adventure, so I traveled the world, met some really interesting people. Icelandic bird, again. This is my favorite. Yeah, as you understood, I met some really interesting people, but the question still exists. Why are we actually getting hacked? Why are we actually one step behind? So the question was, what is IT security? Pretty simple. What's IT security? What's your job? What do you prioritize within your job? Do you prioritize antivirus or education, or how do you prioritize your work? Who are you educating and how are you educating them? And what are you actually trying to protect? That's a pretty straightforward question. What are you actually trying to protect? What's the worst case scenario? So my conclusions when I asked these questions was, it seems that we're focusing on the completely wrong things today. And I hope that the other speakers will actually share some of their knowledge on this topic as well. Because it seems that when you talk to a CISO, he always say, I need to be protecting myself against all the upcoming threats, all the new stuff, everything that's new. It seems that we're focusing way too much on everything that's new. And the way they do it is they just buy products. I know that the salespeople at Kaspersky is going to kick my ass for saying that, but we're spending way too much money on buying so-called security products. I don't think the solution is buying a security product, not only a security product. And as I told you in the beginning, the stuff that we see, the attacks that we see today, of course some is new, but the majority of the attacks is pretty old. Stuff that we've seen for 10, 15 years back. So why should we always focus on the future? Which actually, I think we should take one step back and say, okay, what did we actually do wrong last year? What made us fail? What did we do wrong 10 years ago? It's not until we know that we can actually start predict the future and actually start being proactive. Another thing that I always heard from these people was, I want to be compliant. I want to be PCI, DSS compliant. I want to be whatever compliant. But being compliant is not the same thing as being secure, right? Or is it? Do you guys agree? Is being compliant the same thing as being secure? Icelandic people are very shy. Anyone need some sake so they can warm up? No, being compliant is not the same thing as being secure. Do we all agree on that? What about education? How many in here have some kind of managing role at their company? Quite a few people. Do you also handle education? Some people do. Do you send your technical people to technical classes? That's a yes and no answer. I don't. Do you send your technical people to technical classes? Exactly. Yes. Do you send your non-technical people to non-technical classes, like HR, PR, marketing? They go to whatever classes they need to. Technical people to technical classes. Okay, let me ask you one question. Who is the people who need the technical training? Is it the technical people? Or is it the non-technical people? I think there's a false perception that we always send people. For example, system administrators is often sent to classes where they learn how to write exploits and do penetration testing. To be a good system administrator, I say you don't actually need to know how to exploit the buffer overflow. You need to know how to secure good systems, set up systems. You need to know how the users is actually using the systems to know how to set them up correctly, right? So shouldn't we just send non-technical people to some technical classes so we can teach them not open stupid PDF exploits and stuff like that. And the technical people, they should actually be sent to the non-technical people so they know how the non-technical people is going to use the system that they are trying to secure, right? So we're doing it in the wrong way. Internal education is also a very nice word. Does anyone do internal education at their company? What is internal education? Do you take an external speaker to speak at your company? Both. So that's considered as internal education, that you have an external speaker speaking at your company. What's the difference than going to a normal external class? Pricing? Focus? The thing is that a lot of companies have a lot of knowledge. The knowledge probably really exists within the company already. I would say internal education is when you can educate your staff with the knowledge that you already have in-house. That will save you a lot of money. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to classes or conferences and so on, but it's just the way we think. It seems that the way we think is wrong. And the way we think is actually making us more insecure than it should. Awareness is also a very hot buzzword. So people read about vulnerabilities and exploits and all this stuff, but is that actually helping them? If I would tell you, you are vulnerable to an off-by-one vulnerability in your setting daemon, would you know what to do about that problem? Most people won't. But they still read all these technical advisories and say, okay, now there's a new SQL injection, or there's a off-by-one, or there's something in a service that I'm running. But what does that actually mean? What does it mean to your company if someone can execute arbitrary code? It also depends on which kind of server the vulnerability exists on, and so on. So we need to know how to filter out all that. You know? Because if I would tell you that you are vulnerable to a technical vulnerability, is that the same thing as you having a threat against your company? We're focusing way too much on only vulnerabilities and not thinking about the different threats. So how many people here from a bank? I know that there's people from banks here. Some people. Is there anyone that's from, let's say, online gaming something? Okay, we have both. You put your hands on both bank and online gaming. Your bank have online gaming? Yeah. You have roulette on your bank? That's a nice bank. I just want to do a small exercise. So let's pretend that you are the security manager at a bank. You have this online banking site, right? What is the worst case scenario for that online bank? Anyone? Theft? Any other suggestions? Denial of service, so downtime?
Leaking of private information.
Say again?
Leaking of private information.
What kind of private information? Like banking numbers, bank accounts?
Yeah.
So now we have a few different suggestions. What's the worst case scenario? Insider trader losing 4 billion. And now what about the online gaming site? What's the worst case scenario for an online gaming site? Downtime? Yeah? Public embarrassment? I don't really have the answers to these questions. But the CSOs should have. They should know. The guy at the bank should know this is the worst case scenario for this function or this part of the organization or my company. They should know. The funny thing, when I mentioned this online gaming site, most people say cheating. That people can cheat in the bank, on the online gaming site. And I think if someone can cheat on an online gaming site, that will just draw more attention to the site and more people will play. So maybe that's still a good thing. And downtime is something that I would consider as one of the worst case scenarios for an online gaming site. If you cannot play, yeah, you'll just go to the next site. And for a bank, I don't think downtime is the worst case for a bank. Because if I want to transfer money or I want to pay my bills and the bank is not available at that time, I'll just do it some other day. But as long as my money is intact, that's what I care about. That's the customer. That's my personal opinion. But the thing is, the CSOs doesn't know. They don't know. They have no idea. So they're not aware of their own threats. But they all know. They can say, we have 4 SQL injections. We have 4 vulnerabilities. Because they have statistics from vulnerability management software. But they're not aware of the threats against the company. And also, if I tell you, this is what you're vulnerable against, or this is a threat against your company, do you know how that actually affects you as a manager for that company? How does that actually affect your company? That's something that we need to think about. Because maybe a buffer overflow in the system is actually not the worst case scenario. Maybe that's acceptable. As long as, for example, another system doesn't go down. There's something called the CIA triad. The confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's quite important to have in mind. And people don't really know about that. People tend to forget about these trivial things that we talked about in the 80s, when I was this big. False perception is extremely dangerous in our business. And we see it all the time. Every day I see it. Please raise your hand if you think Linux is more secure than Windows. I know that you're lying. There's more people thinking that. How many think that OpenBSD is more secure than Windows? Some people. Some people. You don't dare to raise your hand right now, because I'll be up your ass saying you're wrong. I know that. You have this perception that, for example, Linux and Unix and all this Unix-based operating system, that they are more secure than Windows. So when a manager says, we need to have a new website, we need to have a new server, and they talk about security, there's always someone saying, well, let's run OpenBSD, NetBSD, because it's so much security. There's no such thing as malicious code against this operating system, and no one can hack it. Crap, that's bullshit. It's completely wrong. Because if you don't know what you're doing, then it probably won't be secure, because you haven't actually hardened it, you haven't configured it in a proper way. So it's all about knowing what to do with the operating system or service that you're installing. Because if you look at the statistics, it's actually Unix machines that's getting more compromised than Windows. Windows is more a target for malware than Unix and Linux. But Unix machine is running all kind of weird web applications. I don't blame Unix or Linux for that, but it's just the way we think. We take this secure operating system and then we take this crappy web application, put it on this secure operating system, and think that everything will solve itself. It won't. Firewalls make your network protected against hackers. That's something I actually heard people say. I have a firewall, so I am secure. This is also a very false perception. Firewalls doesn't protect you against hackers. Helps you maybe configure your network in a proper way, but it doesn't automatically, kick the hacker's ass. It won't. patch management is everything. As long as I have a good patch management routine, I will be secure. So they run Windows Update. And forget about updating Adobe Acrobat Reader and Java and Flash and browsers and plugins and all kind of other stuff that comes along. But they are running Windows Update, so they should be secure, right? And also, I was pointing to this before. They don't really know what they're patching. They're updating software. They say, okay, there is this format string attack in some kind of software. I'll patch it. But what did that actually mean to be vulnerable? Because you've been vulnerable. You've seen it because the patch was released, let's say today. How long have I been vulnerable to a format string attack? And what does that actually mean to my organization? Maybe there's some additional steps that I need to take. Maybe someone actually already compromised that machine or attacked that part of the network. Maybe I should look into that. And if I don't know what the actual vulnerability means, how should I take the necessary steps? Right? And also, are we compliant and are we secure? I don't know. It's weird to hear people say that, oh, I'm PCI compliant for my web shop or my e-commerce system. So I don't need to do any additional hands-on thing. I am compliant. I got this diploma, the stamp from the consulting company saying that I'm compliant, which means that that server is actually secure. It's safe. I don't need to do anything about it. So after I've raised all these questions and thought about it, and I've written everything down, and I talked to the people, I was like, okay, I need to come to some kind of conclusion. Because now I have a lot of dialogues, I have a lot of text, I have conversations. Now what? What's the conclusion? Can anyone guess what the conclusion is? What would be your conclusion? We're screwed. I actually totally agree with that. But there's some other stuff that actually I was thinking about, which is one of the reasons why I travel so much and I do a lot of presentations, is that there's a lot of security companies that's trying to change this, to educate people. But we cannot do it alone. We need people like you, because in this room, there is so much knowledge you have no idea. I mean, we have some really good presenters today, really good lineup. But you guys, what about you guys? You also have a lot of experience, and if that experience is not shared to people in the security industry or people in the same industry, I would like everyone to actually learn or know the person that's sitting next to you, because it might be someone that can help you in your job. Could be someone that's working in the same industry that you haven't met before. Instead of only listening to us security experts, you also need to work together, because we will not be able to solve everything for you. You actually need to solve some parts of it on your own as well. And another interesting thing was culture. There's a lot of, I don't know how much that affects companies on Iceland, but you know, I did some presentations in the Middle East. And there's some countries in the Middle East where the king can make IT decisions. He can open and close ports and firewalls. How do you actually work with that? How do you work with people from a different religion who needs to take a break during the day to pray? I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying, how do you actually work with that? How do you set up people? What if something happens, you know, and they're not available? How do you work with people who don't really follow rules and they rather do someone they know a favor than actually following rules? How can you control a security policy when you have people, for example, in Germany who is very strict on following rules, and in other parts of the world, you have people with a different mindset? Then you have all the individuals that some people, depending, it doesn't matter where they come from or what religion, they just don't want to follow rules, or some people want to follow rules. How do you actually work with that? How do you follow up? How do you manage that in a global IT security world? And also, we're all connected to each other through the internet, right? You heard about this thing, internet. We are connected to each other. And, you know, we have different parts of the world with different security levels. But we are still one big thing. There's one big entity, the internet. So culture actually affects IT security, which was something that I didn't think about before. So the conclusion was actually that security is a mindset. It's not a product, it's not a service, it's a mindset. And that affects everyone. It doesn't just affect security people, it also affects your HR lady, PR managers, secretaries, support guys. Doesn't matter. If they don't know what you're trying to achieve, you will never achieve that. They need to know what the security officers, the security managers, what they're trying to achieve, because otherwise they'll just fight you. So education is quite important as well, that you educate them is this is what we're trying to achieve, this is how we're going to achieve it, and we want you on board. Instead of just telling the technical guys, fix that in the firewall, fix that restriction, fix that whatever thing, without telling the other people. So we need to work together. Culture affects IT security, and IT security is not a product, it's not a service, it's not a conference, it's a mindset. Thank you very much.